Welcome back to another DCS F14 tutorial. This time we'll be going over navigation and air-to-air refueling. So this video should be around 15 to 20 minutes, so get comfortable. So quickly we're just going to be going over the different types of navigation. So there are three types of navigation in the F14. There is number one, TACAN, which we'll be using to go from point A to B. So what I mean by that is it's a one-way ticket, so it only goes from your plane to the station that you are tuned into, or the plane or carrier that you're tuned into. Number two is destination, and what that does is it's basically just waypoint. So you put a stationary waypoint here, you name it something. So like waypoint 1, stationary waypoint here. So we'll name that waypoint 2, stationary waypoint 3, which is somewhere else. And basically you just follow it in order. So you just follow waypoint 1, 2, 3. And they're stationary. So you can actually fly from like A, B, C, D instead of just A to B. And third is ADF, which is basically the same as TACAN, except it's used for ground operations, so like airfields. So you can go ahead and continue and learn what these symbologies look like. So we'll be going over TACAN and destination for this one. We will not be going over ADF. So let's go ahead and put ourselves into autopilot. And where are these navigations, you're wondering? Are these steer points and stuff? You come down to your HSD, boom, right there in front of your face. The first mode we'll be going over is destination steer point, and we can confirm this if we go to our steer commands on our displays. We are in destination mode and TACAN is right next to it. So we can also confirm we're in destination because there's a big dest right there, right in front of us. We'll be going over this quickly. So we know that HSD is a repeater of our magnetic compass, right? So this diamond right here is the triangle up here, or our current heading, and this is just a repeat of this, the actual compass, the compass rose. So what we'll be using to steer to our destination is this line right here. Wherever this line points is the direction we need to go to get to the selected waypoint. And up here is our range. And that's literally all there is to it. We just follow this line until the range is 0 and we're over our waypoint. And that's how you successfully navigate with destination. This information is just wind, direction, and speed, your true airspeed and ground airspeed. So you really won't be using any of this, you'll just be using a line and range. And TACAN mode to navigate, instead of using this line, because this is a course selector, so this is a set course used as a visual reference. So instead of using that line, right, so this is in destination mode, it's a steer command, while this is a visual reference. We use the triangle on top of the compass, right? So this actually tracks our selected station, right? And this is the big difference between TACAN and destination. So as I said before, TACAN is a point A to B, and that is because TACAN actually tracks the station. So TACAN is mostly used for navigating towards an aircraft carrier or doing air-to-air refueling because those objects are constantly moving. So destination, it would not work for that because there are stationary points, waypoints, that would not track the object you're trying to get to, whether that is a carrier or air-to-air refueling tanker. Right, so 99.9% of the times you'll be using TACAN to navigate to the tankers and the aircraft carriers, and you'll be using destination for everything else. And this is self-explanatory. This is our steer command, so we steer towards there to get where we're going, and this is our range. It's the same thing, just a different steer command. And on destination, we can actually see our waypoint steer command and our TACAN steer command at the same time. Our TACAN shows on both destination and TACAN, while destination only shows in destination mode. And while you can get the steer command for TACAN and destination, it doesn't show the proper range. So in destination, it shows the waypoint range, and in TACAN, it shows the station range. And you can see there's a clear difference, so just make sure that you keep that in mind if you're using TACAN in destination mode. That's all there is to actually navigating with these two modes.
It's game time.
And now we can just
Bandit. 12 o'clock low. 7 miles.
Okay, just waiting for Jester to stop talking. Now that you know how to read the symbology and how to actually steer to the place, you have to know how to set it, right? So we'll just be going over this quickly. So if you go to your navigation mode in the Jester main menu, you'll be using 1, select destination steer point, 4, steer point for map. Those 2 are for destination mode, and 5 is obviously for TACAN, which in TACAN you should only be using tune TAC, right? So if we go back to that menu, we'll go over TACAN first just because it's the quickest. So as I said before, TACAN is a station tune-in, right? So you select TACAN, you tune your TACAN, and you get your options. Whatever is at the top is the closest, right? So we'll be going to the tanker later. So for now, we'll just select STINUS, which stands for the aircraft carrier. And the aircraft carrier is over to our right, which is down over there. So if we select it,
Copy that.
boom, I guess it was already set to the carrier because it's not changed. And if we track that indicator, we can tell, boom, it's right there off to our right. And if we do the same thing and we go to tune TAC to the tanker,
Roger.
the tanker should be off to our left. So our steer command shows off to our left and it's 21 miles away. Boom. Now you know how to select your steer command in TACAN. So now we can go over here and go over destination mode quickly. Oh, my bad. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. You have to be careful in which mode you're in, right? So that tanker is not actually 22 miles away. It's actually 11.5. So if we switch to TACAN, you see it's actually 11 miles away instead of 22. Right? Right. So going back to destination input. So, unlike TACAN, which you actually use this dial here, right? And what you do for TACAN is a station will have 2 numbers and a letter, right? So it'll be either 2 digits X or 2 digits Y, right? So you just use this and you put the number on it and you hit X and it shows you where your TACAN is going. And you either put it to air or TR, which stands for transit receive, depending on where you're navigating. But unlike TACAN, destination actually uses coordinates. So if you manually do it, you have to manually input latitude and longitude into the computer. But fortunately for us, we have a Jester, and he does that automatically for us. So what we do is we simply go to the map and say, hey, we want to navigate to this MI8 over here, right? So we say MI8, I want that to be waypoint 1. And we say, okay, then we want to come over here to Glinzig, right? And we say Glyn, right? So we have 2 waypoints set, right? So it's MI8, and I want that to be waypoint 1. And this is Glinzig, and I want that to be waypoint 2. So we go back into our cockpit, and we go ahead and say steer point from map. And I say, hey, I want that MI8 to be at waypoint 1, so I select waypoint 1, and I select MI8 for waypoint 1.
Roger.
He'll push some buttons and stuff. You can hear him click and stuff. and that clicking stops, we'll get the steer command and we'll get a range. Now, if I measure the range from us to that marker, it's 20 miles away. So we know that that is an accurately placed waypoint, and that if we steer to there, we will actually go towards our waypoint. Same for Glinsdeck. So I say I wanted Glinsdeck to be at waypoint 2. So I select that, and I select Glinsdeck. And after he stops typing and stuff, Glinsdeck will be on waypoint 2. And that is all you need to know for navigation. So we'll just do a quick recap. We went over HUD symbology between the two. We went over how to navigate, or how to actually use the steer commands for both modes. And we went over how to set our waypoints and stations in the respective modes. So, my last tip before moving on from the navigation section is our HSD is a repeater of our magnetic compass up here. Our magnetic compass over here is actually in TACAN mode, right? So this fat needle right here is our steer command for our TACAN. As you can see here, they're both showing the same thing, right? 201, 201. I mean 210, 210, right? And if we go into TACAN mode, the ranges right up here, right? This is about 13.6 or 13 point something, right? It shows up here. It's like 13 point something, 13.8 over here, right? So you do not have to go to TACAN mode on the HSD to navigate in TACAN. You can actually navigate in TACAN mode using your magnetic compass, right? And you can keep this in destination. So a good way to use the two is, if you're doing a mission, you can have your HSD in destination mode to fly using the waypoints to get to wherever you're going, right? And after you finish your mission, instead of having to switch this back, you can actually just navigate using your magnetic compass. That's the last thing I want to do on the navigation section. So, as I was talking earlier, we can go ahead and move on to air-to-air refueling section. So we go to navigation, we select TACAN, we tune our TAC, and we select our tanker.
Alrighty.
Our tanker is going to be over there. I can tell by the marker. But if we did not have the marker on, we select TACAN. We'll have our steer command over here, and it is 9 miles away. So we can actually visually look over there to see if there's something. If we can't visually see it, turn towards the steer command and fly towards it. I've been talking for quite a bit now, but we'll just go over some basic operations for air-to-air refueling. So, when air-to-air refueling, before you approach, you want to have your wing sweep in bomb mode. You want to have your HUD.
S3, 12 o'clock, 7 miles.
Okay, that is our tanker he's talking about, the S3. We'll be tanking on the S-3B Viking today, but back to what I was saying. So you want to have your wing sweep in bomb mode. You want to have your HUD in air-to-air mode, so it'll give you this datum right here and our 30-degree pitch bar. And that's all you need to have. You also need to have your stabilizers on because they're stabilizers. They stabilize you. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my controls on right here. That way you can actually see my control inputs. Our tanker should be nearby. It says 5 miles away. And our navigation does not show altitude, so we can steer towards it, but we might not be at the right altitude, so you have to visually scan to make sure you're at the right altitude for it. Okay, so we're set for pre-contact, and now what you want to do is, there are 4 steps to tanking. Step number 1, observation. So what you do is you go towards the observation center, which is on the left of the tanker. And what you do is you just formation fly towards the left with the tanker. That way you can trim out your plane to release stick pressure and make your movements a lot smoother. I'm just going to put markers back on so I can actually see its altitude. And there she blows. If you didn't see it, it's turn markers back on. It's right there. So step 1, go to observation left. Self-explanatory. Go to the left, you formation fly, you trim out, release stick pressure and stuff, that way you feel comfortable. Step 2, you contact the tanker. So what you do, you select tanker, you select intent to refuel once you're in the observation. You can do it beforehand, like I'll just do it now since I can form with the tanker pretty fast. Right, there you go. So he tells us he is at 14,000 feet. Then we go to pre-contact, which is step 3. So step 1, go to observation left, which we're doing right now. Step 2 is contact the tanker. So we say we have an intent to refuel. Now, 99.9% of times, the basket will not come out of the drogue until you say you are cleared contact. And I'll go over what that means in a minute. Right, so we slow down. The tanker will usually be under 300 knots. So just keep that in mind once you're trying to form with the tanker. Right. So we need to get into observation left position before we say anything about pre-contact. Alright, didn't want to smash into him because I couldn't see him. Just getting nice and formed with it. Now I'm going to trim the plane out to release stick pressure. And we're going to jog the throttle to make sure we're not going too fast or too slow. Alright. Now we're in the observation left position. This is the part where we would say intent to refuel if you didn't do it earlier. We're nice and trimmed out so we feel comfortable. So step 3, move into pre-contact position. So basically right when you're about to refuel over here. So we come to pre-contact position. And now we say ready pre-contact with the radio. He'll say cleared contact. If he says return pre-contact, that means you are not in the right position and you have to say it again. Ready pre-contact. Clear to contact means that you are now able to refuel, so you put your drogue out, your probe, wrong word. I call that the drogue, and that's the basket. So, we are now in step 3, so refuel. Now, the easiest way to do this is do not go head on with the basket like this because our probe is off to our right. So we have to offset our plane with the basket, and there are references for this to make it easier for you. So, reference number 1, the drogue. What you want to do is you want to put the drogue in between the cross right here and the 30 degree. And basically what that does is it offsets you enough that your probe over here is lined up with the basket. Number 2 is your aircraft indicator right there in the middle of our screen. We want that to be lined up with the basket, and that basically just lines up our altitude with the basket. So, put up our references. We come in closer with the tanker. Trim as we're doing it to make this easier for our life. Keeping our references, keeping our references. Keeping our references. Boom, contact. So we're just gonna climb up a bit.
And taking fuel.
That we can have some type of references that we can use rather than just having to constantly crouch my head down. So now that I'm connected with the tanker, I have to make sure that I am in range, that way I do not disconnect from the basket. And I do this by simply jogging the throttle back and forth. That way I do not have too much power or too little power. And I can make corrections pretty easily. And now I just have to set a few references. So reference number 1 is obviously what I did before, keeping that drogue in between the cross and that 30 degree, just to make sure that we're lined up laterally with our proper offset.
15,500.
And I'm also looking near this hook section over here to make sure that I am not dropping too far. Oh. Just dropped a lot right there for some reason. Get our references back in order. So I just kind of look at the entire plane to make sure I'm not falling back or moving forward. Just trimming along the way to make sure that I'm, having an easier time with this. Now all it is just holding these references in this position. He's beginning a turn, so we turn with him.
Fuel 17,500.
Not too tough. Keep our references.
Fuel 18,500.
Just calling out our fuel state so we don't have to look down. If we look down quickly, we see at 19.4. Once we're full on gas, the tanker will say that you're like finished or something. And then that'll put us into step 4, which is moving to the right finish position.
Transfer complete.
There you go, transfer complete. We put our probe in,
Nice.
and we move to the right position on the tanker. And we just move to the right just in case we had a wingman or something. If we had a wingman, he would be on the left. I would refuel. Once I finish, I'd come to the right and hold formation on the right side until he finishes refueling, and then he'd form up with me on the right side after he's finished, and then we just fly away. And those are the tutorials for navigation and air-to-air refueling.